Welcome to Geocache Adventures with me, Shadow Dragon 1, where I explore the world of geocaching. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts or on the Geocache Adventures Facebook page. You can also follow Geo Adventures on Buy Me a Coffee for a behind-the-scenes look on every episode. That's one word, GEO Adventures. It's free to follow, or you can become a member and unlock exclusive posts and information. Your memberships go a long way for helping support the podcast and are greatly appreciated. Hi, everybody. Before we start this week's episode, I want to give a big shout out to Ann Mikowski. I apologize if I did not pronounce your last name right, Ann. But Ann is the newest member and supporter of the podcast on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Your support goes a long way to help cover hosting fees and website fees and fees for some of the tools I use like Zoom and everything else. So your support is really appreciated and it helps me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you so much. Hi everybody, Amy Shadow Dragon 1 here, and with me today is fellow geocacher Chad, known as Trycacheus. I believe I said it right.
You did.
And you are one of the Gilby, North Dakota cachers, which for anybody not familiar with Gilby, North Dakota, it's often referred to as the Disneyland of Geocaching. And several of your geocaches have been featured on various vlogs.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And you're going to talk to us about hiding geocaches today. So how did you first get started geocaching?
I used to be the Cub Scout leader, and in the magazine for the Cub Scouts, there was an article on geocaching. So I read that, got really interested in it, went right out and bought myself a little yellow Garmin GPS and found my first cache 2 months later.
So was there not a lot of caches in your area at the time?
No, there really wasn't. I didn't know any other cachers that were in the area. And then there was a cacher that was in Gilby that actually hid another cache. So that was the first I was aware of any other cachers. So it was kind of neat because in my small little rural community, I pretty much knew everybody, but I didn't know who this new geocacher was. So it was fun finding out who that was.
So when you found out, I'm guessing it was somebody that you knew?
Yeah, it certainly was. It was actually a fairly close friend that I knew, and he pretty much started about the same time I did. So it was kind of fun that way.
Cool. So how many geocaches have you hidden at this point?
I would guess I've probably hidden maybe close to 100. I probably had on my own geocaching name. I've hidden several for other people. I probably have maybe 40 to 60 that are active. We had a few go missing. Last year we had a little bit of trouble with somebody busting up quite a few of them. So it was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, that's always sad when that happens. We are going to talk more about some of your personal hides and some of the hides you've helped with. But to start out, let's talk about the basics of hiding for somebody who may be newer or hasn't hidden a cache yet. How many hides does a person have to have before they go hide a geocache? This is a number that's always way up in the air, and everybody has a different number.
Yeah, I like to see people find 20 to 50 at least. Myself, I found 40 before I started hiding. One of the big steps I think a lot of people skip is they don't read the rules. They don't research at all. They just go right out and try to hide something. Getting good coordinates is important. A good cache container that's waterproof, that'll stand up in the sunlight and cold and rain and whatnot. Things like that for basic hides, I think it's important. Like they definitely read a little bit, go on the forums, see what you can find.
Definitely. Yeah, geocaching.com has a lot of great information for hiding geocaches, and there's so many videos out there on YouTube about it as well. It's easy to find information if you just go look.
Yes, definitely.
When you're trying to decide where to locate a cache at, what are some things that you look for or consider when you're finding that place?
Uh, for me, with the type of caches I put out, gadget caches, they need to be, I like to find caches in secluded areas. So in my rural area, Gilby, I've got shelter belts that are dividing fields and keep the wind and erosion down. So I put most of my caches are all out in shelter belts, uh, which helps a lot for muggles and things like that, people accidentally finding them. There have been a few that have been found by muggles, but most of them have been pretty safe. So I like to find places like that. There isn't a lot of interesting places near me, but I enjoy finding caches that are in interesting spots. So if I see an interesting place, sometimes I'll put a cache out there also.
One of the important things about hiding a cache is getting permission to place it first. So, especially out in a rural area, if you're not sure who owns the land, how do you go about finding that information?
In my rural area, I know quite a few of the people, and if I don't know who it is, then of course their neighbors know. I do have a what they call a plat map, which you can open up and find every quarter of land, and you can see who owns that land, and so I can find that way. But in my general area where I hide, I pretty much know everybody and who owns that quarter, and they've all been real receptive as far as putting caches out. Uh, Now that Gilby has gotten quite a bit more popular, everybody seems to know what I'm up to or why there's a car with a Manitoba license plate parked on the side of the road or somebody from Colorado or whatever. People always, so if I run into them, they say, yeah, there's somebody from Indiana. I seen a license plate from here. So they're still a little bit amazed the number of people that come out here from a long distance away.
I bet. So, if we need to get a plat map of our area, those are available typically at county records, correct?
Yeah, I believe there's also stuff on the internet you can look up. I'm trying to think, is it GIS? I can't think of what the acronym is, but there are places on the internet you can find also.
And do you have any advice for approaching somebody to ask permission? Because I think that's always the hardest part
Yeah,
is actually going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, I want to place a geocache here."
yeah, that is. I I typically will go and visit with them, show them a cache. Maybe if I want to put a gadget cache out, I'll bring some gadget cache with me and explain to them what it is and how it works, and if they're okay with putting it out there, I'll let them know roughly where it is and go from there. As far as in Grand Forks, I've put out a couple of caches there and get permission where I have to. And uh, we're really we're talking about putting a geo tour up in Grand Forks. So I've got to visit with the visitor center there and see about getting permission in places, see where they would like to have caches also.
What kind of expectations are there for owners of geocaches?
For me as an owner, um, I do like to read the logs. I read every log that I get. It really varies. Some people will just put thanks. Some people write a big story about the cache they found. But logs are what's fun to read about it. Um, I do get to meet up with quite a few of them because I have a couple of caches that are near my place, or I might catch somebody along the road that's parked near a cache. So whenever I see somebody out caching, I'll try to swing by and visit with them, and then I get another story of what they've been doing and how much fun they've been having out in the Gilby area.
With a lot of your caches being gadget caches, do you have a lot of issues with maintenance and having to go out often to maintain them, or are they the type of gadget that is self sufficient?
Um, I have a few that run on batteries, and they seem to last quite a while. Um, Most of my caches I like to build pretty solid. They can withstand the weather pretty well. They can take a beating. I try to think through what somebody's going to do on any of my gadget caches. When my kids were home, I would build caches, and then they'd come out and see how they get into them. So I kind of watch what they're doing, what they're trying to pry open, and if I need to strengthen it up or build it better, I'll do that. But I try to make them maintenance free as much as possible. Most of mine seem to stand up pretty well, which I'm pretty happy with.
Do you have any advice for when you submit a geocache to the reviewer process?
I've always felt that I've worked well with the reviewers. Um, I always make sure that I know the proximity to other caches. The reviewers we've had have all worked with me, and we've done haven't really had any problems with them. Since COVID was here, there's some issues with hiding caches in towns, but the rural caches he was allowing quite a bit. Now I think everything has kind of changed and everything's going well, but I really haven't had any major problems with any reviewers. Explain to them what you're doing, let them know you have the permission to hide it and what it is, and he's been pretty easy to work with.
And the more information, the better, right?
Oh yeah, yep. Some reviewers want more information. Sometimes they'll want to know how it's attached. Um, Sometimes if they need a picture of something or explain a little bit more, I'm open to let them know whatever they need.
Let's talk about some of your geocaches now. First of all, what made you decide to hide your very first geocache?
We were out with a Cub Scout group, and we go down to Fortville Dam and camp there and kayak and canoe. So that was the first place I talked to the ranger there and asked if I could put a couple of caches out with the Boy Scout or Cub Scouts, and he said, yeah, that'd be fine. And he, of course, back then he didn't know what it was either, so we had to show him what it was. So we ended up hiding two out in the Fortville Dam area, and they're still out there. I should probably go out and check them someday, but they've stood the test of time so far. One is an ammo can, and then the other was, which at that time was a hollowed out stump I made and put a container inside of that. So that was about as interesting as they got back in 2008, anyway, for me.
So, how did you transition from an ammo can to doing these gadget caches?
I've always been kind of creative, and I want to kind of raise the bar each time I put a cache out. And that was the fun thing about finding out there's another geocacher in Gilby. We started talking, and he had his own little workshop, and we started talking about making Gilby a Mecca. But sadly, he passed away about maybe 3 months later. He passed away at 56, but that was a little better than 10 years ago now. But he when he'd find my caches, he'd always say I'd raised the bar again, and in his logs. And he was a fun guy. It would have been fun to work with him a little bit more on making caches in Gilby. He made some kind of interesting ones too.
Did anybody take over his caches?
Yeah, I adopted the caches that he had around Gilby. There's another cacher that adopted his that were in Grand Forks, which is a half hour away.
I've seen multiple caches of yours on vlogs. It's actually how I got your name, is seeing these geocaches on like the geocaching vlogger and geocaching with Hellmeister, and looking them up and seeing that they're all by the same cacher. What was it like the first time you found out your geocache was on a vlog? Do they approach you first and say, hey, can I record this? Does somebody say, hey, I think I found one of your caches on YouTube? How did that go?
So a few of my caching friends, they would go to the bigger events, and they'd run into the geocaching vlogger, Joshua, and they'd always tell them that you got to come up to Gilby if you want to videotape some fun caches. And everybody, I'd run into them, they'd say, hey, I ran into Josh, I told him about Gilby, and maybe he'll come up someday. But then we went to the Cincinnati event, and we were a friend of mine, G. Neese, and I were walking down the trails and ran into Joshua coming the other way, and stopped him and said had to say hi to him, and then he turned and he seen my name tag and goes, "Oh, you're that guy from Gilby that everybody's telling me about." And then 2 or 3 years ago now, I said he contacted me and said that he'd be coming up, and ended up coming up twice and videotaped caches for. He had them, I think, one every week. So he said he had lots of footage, and I see he's got quite a few on TikTok now, and so that was pretty neat to get to meet him. My daughter and I used to watch him when, and she was always excited to see Reester Bunny on there, Reese, and because they were about the same age. And my daughter was thumbing through my phone pictures one day, and she goes, "Dad, this is that geocaching guy." I says, "Yeah." And she goes, "When did you meet him?" She was, because I didn't even tell her about it. So she was pretty excited. And then when he was videotaping the caches in Gilby, there was one behind the house, and he was a little worried about our dog outside. So I sent my daughter out there to help him out. So she got to be in a video with him, and she was pretty tickled about that.
Oh, that's
it's pretty
neat.
neat. Yeah, and then the Hailmeister, he's a pretty nice guy too. He came out last year to the Gilby Gone Wild event we had, and I've ran into him at a couple of different events. So they're both nice people.
Gilby Gone Wild, is that an annual event you have, or was that just a one-time deal you guys did?
Well, I'm told it's an annual event now. I think last year was our second year. And so we have another one this year, September 25th or 24th. I can't remember. It's on a Saturday. It's posted out there. I'm not sure how many are signed up now. Our first year, we probably had in about 100 people. And the last year we had maybe 200, 250. So that pretty much doubles the size of Gilby, our small little town. And people are just amazed how many people we can fit in that little park in Gilby.
How big is Gilby exactly?
I believe it's about 244 people in town. And then, like I say, it's a rural farming community, so there's about every mile there's a farm or somewhere.
Yeah, an event like that does about double the town then, doesn't it?
It definitely did. Yeah. There's one picture on the side of the hardware store. They painted a big mural, and the artist actually painted my path tag on the side. So we took a picture of everybody from the event against that wall, and there's a lot of people. I think it's one of the pictures that's on the Gilby event page.
That's neat. So, are all of your active hides gadget caches? Or mostly?
No, not all of them. Most of them, definitely. Yeah. That's pretty much all I seem to hide now. I have a few in Grand Forks that are normal-ish type caches, hide in plain sight type things. But I don't know that I've got any caches that are just on signposts necessarily. They're a little bit trickier.
How do you come up with your ideas for your gadget caches?
That's always a hard one. I've got quite an imagination, I guess. If I see something, it'll be in the back of my mind. I go to an event that down in Bemidji in Minnesota, about an hour, 2 hours away, and it's a Maker Madness event. So you bring a piece of junk of some sort, and you put it in a pile, and then you draw another piece of junk, and you bring that home, and a month later you come back and make a geocache out of whatever piece of weird item you came home with. So actually I've got a few of them out here that that we've made out of tennis rackets and the crutch and wire dog and different weird things like that. Little vacuum hose. I've got one that I'll be putting out this year. Some different camping items that are going to be turned into caches and be put out this year. But I've got a notebook on my headboard, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and scribble some goofy thing on a piece of paper and wake up in the morning and try to decipher what I was trying to create it in my mind over while I was sleeping. So sometimes I can figure it out, not always. Mm-hmm.
One of your favorite caches that I've seen a video for is the Driving Miss Daisy cache. Would you mind talking about that a little bit? Because that one just is such a neat, unique idea.
Yeah, Driving Miss Daisy, I do like that one. I don't even know how I came up with it. I forget, but it's basically looks like a big hair dryer in a sense. So you go to the location, you find it, and you have to actually get back into your car. So there's a fan inside of it. You got to hold it out the window as you drive down the road. And when the wind blowing through the fan generates electricity, and it lights up 3 different LEDs. And that gives you the code for the combination of the ammo can back at where the original site is. So you got to go down the road about 40 miles an hour with this hanging out the window and watching for what LEDs light up. And a lot of people really enjoy that one. That's definitely my favorite cache by far.
Have you ever had issues with that device disappearing?
No, that one I've never had a problem
Really?
with. It's always worked. I imagine when the big event is on, there's people have it going down the highway as somebody's pulling into the approach to find it, and they just have to sit there and wait until the last cacher comes back with it, and I'm sure it's back on the road and gone again. But that one I've had no problems with.
That is such a neat one. And when I was going through the geocacher vloggers videos and I saw Driving Miss Daisy, and I thought, I actually remember watching that movie on TV as a kid, and I thought, I've got to see what this is. And that was just such a neat idea. Where did you find that device? Is that something you built, or did you find it and buy it?
No, that's all homemade. It's a piece of PVC pipe, a piece of wood for a handle, and a fan that who knows where I got the fan from, come out of a computer or something. But I know there's a couple other ones out there that are made copies of it. There's one in Arizona, I believe, done by Chuck Belkanthes. His is looks more like an airplane, and it's near a Glide airport, and he gets lots of favorites on that one. So it's I think that's pretty neat when I find other people making caches that I've created. That just makes me really tickled about that stuff.
Do people approach you and say, hey, I want to copy your cache, how do I do this? Or do you just find out later on that, hey, somebody has a similar one?
It's a little both. Some people ask if it's okay, and I'm okay with it. But majority of the time, I happen upon them, or somebody says, "Hey, I did one. You copied one that I found over here," and I said, "Well, actually, that was probably my original cache." But it's like I say, I'm happy that people will make them. I've gotten emails from overseas in Europe asking, "Hey, how did you make this?" So that's kind of neat. Like I say, to be getting emails from overseas from people asking how to make this cache or that cache.
Yeah, your caches are kind of famous. like really, it's kind of, everybody says, if it's one of those places that you just need to go caching at because it's got all these awesome caches at. And from the videos I've seen, I really hope I can get up there one day and do some geocaching because it just looks amazing.
No, that's pretty neat. My kids are a little bit surprised how famous I am. They say yesterday we had 5 geocachers from Canada, all brothers and sisters, come down and they sent me a text or email later saying how much fun they had, because I would guess they're all 60s at least, and they how excited and how much fun they had running around the Gilby area and felt like young kids, and they're still giggling yet.
That's so
All
neat.
the memories they made. Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to your own hides, you've also helped with a geo tour and a historic trail. What's the name of the geo tour, and how did you get involved in helping with this?
Uh, the Geo Tour is in Fargo Moorhead. I can't remember the number. It's 488, 448. I might have to. I can't remember what the Geo Tour number is, but it's Fargo Moorhead. Fargo's in North Dakota and Moorhead's in Minnesota, so across the river from each other. Geocaches, a good friend of mine, had contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in helping her with making a few caches. She's kind of a real big Gilby hype gal. She's a big fan of the Gilby caches. And so I said, yeah, I'd be happy to help out. And then she enlisted the help from M&MO, the cacher in Fargo, and Onion Pond is the cacher just outside of Fargo. So between the three of us, and Gia had a couple of caches made up, we've helped her put out 24 caches in the Fargo Moorhead area. And from people that I've talked to, they said it's one of the best ones that they've ever gone to as far as geotours go. Onion Pond built this really awesome ammo can, a pretty big one. So it's a real neat geotour where Gia put them are all unique areas. One of the ones we made is outside a little gas station, auto repair place, and Ray's Repair. And so we brought it in to show him what we were going to put and ask him where he wanted it. And he was just so excited with it because we were just going to show it to him and hang it up like a couple weeks later. And he said, well, can I keep that here and show people? So he had it in his office, and for 2 weeks he was showing everybody this unique geocache, because nobody knew what geocaching was, but you have to, it's a very unique one. I can't think of what the name, odometer or something like that is the name of it, but that one works pretty neat. It's fitting for an auto place, but he was just so excited about it, and he hugged us and thanked us for putting it out. It's kind of neat.
That's cool. What makes it a geo tour versus just some random hides in the same area?
So a geo tour is advertised through geocaching, and you have, if you complete every stage of the geo tour, you'll get a coin, or I take that back, you'll get a souvenir on your computer. You get a coin, I think, after 20 in Fargo Moorhead. You'll get a geo coin, the geo tour logo and stuff like that. But they are advertised through geocaching, and people will go specifically to places to find geotours. There are some pretty neat ones to go to, and anytime we go to a new city, we check to see if there's a geotour to see how many of the caches we can get from it. But it's basically advertising for the city, and it's Gia, like to say, the gal that was in charge of all this, she ended up winning some awards through the visitor center in Fargo Moorhead because over COVID, that a lot of people are coming just for the geo tour and staying in hotels and eating in Fargo Moorhead area.
Oh.
So it was a big draw. And Gia is a fascinating gal. She actually, HQ sought her out and hired her. So now she works for HQ now. She's got to move to Seattle and work there, and so she's pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it really is. We're so proud of her.
So when you set up a geo tour, are you working with like the tourist bureau or the chamber of commerce of the area, since it is more tourist based?
Yeah, that's definitely, like say, Gia was in charge of all that part of it, finding the locations. She worked very close with the visitor center in Fargo, Moorhead, and they there's a paying aspect. You have to pay to have a geo tour, and it ranges how much it is from how many coins and things like that. So to buy the coins and whatnot. So there is a little bit of money involved. So that makes them fairly rare as far as that goes. But yeah, working with the Chamber of Commerce, she, like I say, she worked with the Visitor Center, and I'll be visiting more with the Grand Forks Visitor Center to see if we can get one in Grand Forks also.
When you get these published, do you talk with the reviewer and have them all published at once so the whole tour goes live at the same time, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm sure that's how that worked out, is that they all published on the day that she had an opening day event for the tour. So they were all published, I believe, that on that day, that morning. So that's kind of neat. And like I say, the reviewer we have here is a pretty decent guy. He does fairly well. Uh, Publishing caches fairly quick and on time whenever I've seen it.
So you've also helped with the Pennama-Walsh County Historic Trail, or the PWHT Trail. Can you tell us what exactly this trail is and what it's about?
So the Historic Society in the Pembina and Walsh County area, they contacted another cacher, and because they wanted to put out, they got a grant, put out caches to bring people to some of the historic areas in Pembina and Walsh County. And that cacher said, "Well, you need to talk to Chad. He's the guy to get these done." So they brought me in, and the three of us, Wise family, M&M, Genice, and myself, visited with the two gals that were in charge of it, and worked out a plan of what we wanted to do and how to do it. And so they wanted to mix from everything from, real easy caches, normal type caches, to fun gadgety type things. So I made, I want to say we've got between 30 and 40 caches out for the Pembina Walsh County area. And they're pretty tickled. Every year we add another 3 to 4 to 5 caches every year, and upkeep the old ones. And if they're always, the nice thing that working with them is they got all the permissions. They just had to tell me where they wanted it, and I just had to come up with what to put there, and make a fun cache for people to find out there. So I'm sure there's got to be close to 40 that we've done for them.
Wow. And every one of those on that trail is at a historical area or related to a historical site?
Yeah, and they actually did all the write-ups too. So it talks about the area, what the history is at that particular spot, whether it's the first farm, or I know there's ox cart trails you can still see that are embedded in the ground. Some different buildings, fur trading buildings that are there. There's a lot of history that I wasn't even aware of in that area, just north of me, north of Gilby, just a little ways. So it was fun. Like I say, they wrote up big write-ups, so people would tell me that, and they're not one next to each other, so it's a little bit of drive to get to the next one. So they tell me that they'll read the history of the next one coming up, and then when they get there, they know everything about the area when they get there. So it's a neat trail with, like I say, the history. But that's not a paid subscription for that one. That's just regular geocaches as a trail.
So, with all these hides that you've been a part of, do you have one that really just sticks out in your mind as like your favorite one that you've created to hide?
Strongman was a big favorite of mine to start with, and then Miss Daisy came along, and Miss Daisy is definitely my favorite now. I've got other caches. It's I always say it's kind of hard to pick which is your favorite kid, kind of thing. Which is I've got a couple of caches in the shop waiting to go out, and I think, oh, they're going to be pretty fun to do. Different people just enjoy coming to Gilby because they get to laugh. They find some unexpected things like I've got let's see, I've got I can't even think of exercise bike. So last year I put a cache out that you use an exercise bike to open up and
The ET.
yep,
Yes, I saw
ET.
the video on that. Yes.
Yeah, and people chuckle about that when why would you come across a exercise bike in the middle of this group of trees?
I think that's some of the most surprising things about some of these gadget caches is that it's like you said, you go out to the spot and then there's randomly an exercise bike in the middle of the woods, and it's like, what is this doing here? And then it's a gadget cache.
Yeah, I've got a few odd, weird things out in the trees for sure.
Well, do you have any, in general, tips for hiding that you think would be helpful for people to share?
And like I say, read the rules, and that's the most important thing. Read the rules, see what you're supposed to be doing. Make sure you're using a real good container. No glass. Don't be putting stuff in there that dangerous, knives, fireworks, candy is a big thing. You don't be putting that in because that just draws ants and insects in it. But yeah, reading the rules and following the rules that way.
With a lot of your caches being in rural areas, have you ever had issues with animals getting into them, mice or anything like that, and mucking about?
Haven't had any get into the cache itself. I have had them get into. I've got one ammo can hidden under a piece of wood, and they'll burrow themselves underneath into that. So they're sitting on top of the ammo can, but nothing that has gotten into. There's been a few that I assume are squirrels chewing on different things, and you can see where they've kind of chewed on corners trying to figure out trying to get into the cache themselves, I guess. But no, I haven't had any trouble with animals other than humans, I guess.
This has been real interesting. Is there anything else about your hide specifically that you'd like to share with us before we get into the cache highlight?
No, not really. I mean, come on out, have fun. If one gets broken, don't be afraid to let me know. They break once in a while, and not everybody is as gentle and easy on them. And like I say, if they're broken, I want to know about it so I can get it fixed for the next person. It's very disappointing when somebody shows up and says it was broken, or the other thing is making sure you put it back the way it was when you found it. Make sure it's locked, because a lot of times people are disappointed when they get there and it's not locked. But no, it's like I say, come on out to Gilby and enjoy your tail. It's people have a lot of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun, and I do hope I get up there to check out some of those caches because they look amazing. So for the cache highlight, you have one for us called Raven's Labyrinth, and the GC code is GC35BKD. So tell me what this geocache is all about.
Yeah, that cache is in Prescott, Arizona. I've been watching it for a long time. I actually was in communication with the cache owner for a little while and talking a little bit. He's got a lot of neat caches. He isn't caching anymore. He adopted all his caches out to Gene and Joe, but the Raven has some amazing caches in the Prescott area. But the Raven's Labyrinth, he actually worked with the city, which is amazing the amount of work that they did with them. But they actually made a shelter with the roof and electricity out to it, and there's a big map box, and you open one side and it has the trail maps for the trail system there, and then you go around the other side and there's a padlock, and you open that and it's a big maze, big labyrinth, and there's computer voices, lights, and it's over the top amazing. It's just so much fun to play with it. And there's different stages, so if you get to stage 1, it'll open up so you can log it, and then if you get to stage 2, it'll do another thing, and I think it might be 3 stage, and if you get all the way through, you'll get your name on an engraved plaque on there. Your name will be on the web page. I think they buy you dinner. It's just amazing. Yeah, it's one of the best caches I've seen.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So there's three parts. You only have to complete the first part to qualify for the find log.
Yep.
But the next two parts get so difficult that if you make it through the third and final one, you get your name engraved on a plaque.
Yeah, yeah, that's basically what I remember in a way.
That's awesome.
Right now right now it's disabled. They're waiting on some parts for it, but and I don't doubt they'll get it back out. Like I say, it is such a neat cache. As far as favorite points, I want to say it's still running at 100% favorite points. Everybody that finds it favorites it.
That's impressive. How did you find out about this? Were you just down the area and looking on the app or whatever and said, oh, this one has a lot of favorite points, let's go there? Or how did you find out about it?
I think I seen it in the forums somewhere, and I looked it up and seen how many favorites it had and how the percentage wise how they're high favorited. And so then I looked at the cache owner and I seen all his caches had lots of favorites. So we had made a plan to go up to Arizona, do some caching. A friend of mine from Winnipeg and and then a week later, then my wife joined me, and he went back home. So then my wife and I zipped up to Prescott, and then of course we had to go up to Grand Canyon and a few other places, Soto and M. But the caches in Prescott are pretty amazing. All the ones that we did of his.
That's cool. You said there was a padlock. Does it say on the cache description how to open the padlock, or how do you get past that?
Yeah. That first padlock was on the cache description page, and you just open that, and then the whole top flips up, and it, like I say, it's also funny because so you're working this maze, this steel ball around, and there's holes and obstacles you have to avoid, and it'll drop through the hole, and then the computer will say something, come on, you got to do better than that, and things like that. It's just I had so much fun working with it, and I think it took me 16 times before I finally got into the first to get the door open.
Oh, just for the first one?
Just the first door.
Wow.
Yeah. So
did you
I
get
really
past the first door?
Yeah, we did. We got the first door open, so we got past that, and then it's right away you're off. The ball falls down the hole or something. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. I would have liked to stayed there and worked on it longer, but it was starting to get cold and dark and rainy, so we said, "Oh, we better go."
So did you get a chance to complete the second phase, or did you have to stop at phase 1?
Yeah, we got to phase 1, and then we figured out like I say, it was starting to get late, and we had to get on the move. But I was hoping to go get it again this year, bring a couple of friends up there. But like I say, it was disabled when we were down there this year. So.
Well, hopefully they'll get it back active soon, because it sounds absolutely amazing, and it sounds like one that you need to plan most of your day to just get that one cache.
Maybe people are more coordinated than I am too. It's a fun cache. It's just fun.
It sounds like it. Oh, that sounds really interesting. Well, Chad, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about hiding caches and about your caches and this cache highlight. That sounds really... That's another one I'm going to have to add to my geocaching bucket list, because it just sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it really is. There are lots of unique caches out there and hiders. It's fun to visit with different hiders when I go to events, and they tell me what they've made, and so we're getting to, there's a little community of hiders that communicate over Facebook or Messenger. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
It definitely sounds like it. Thank you so much, really. And thank you for making these creative geocaches and hiding them. And I hope that it inspires some other people to have some creative or gadget caches placed by them.
Yeah, I'm happy to help if somebody's got questions, if I can help them out. I'm really excited to get people out there and hiding more fun, interesting type caches.
Thank you for listening to Geocache Adventures. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have you heard of FTF Magazine? It's the magazine for geocachers, filled with articles and snippets sent in by geocachers just like you. I'm a subscriber myself, and I love it. Check them out today at ftfgeo.com and tell them Shadow Dragon 1 sent you. Would you like to be a guest on a show or have a topic you'd like to hear covered? Reach out and let me know. Just go to the geocacheadventures.org website and click on the contact page to reach out.